I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies, and today we want to look at a derailed bow, or what I think is a derailed bow. So, a bit of back history. This bow was second hand. I sent it out on eBay. I think I sold the kit for $300, and there was about $200 worth of accessories. So the bow, somewhere around $150. Now this is a $600 bow of its period. The bow is about 3 to 4 years old, and it's a very stable system. These limbs have been made for ages, and in fact, of all the PSE surges I sold, I don't think I've ever had a failure. So this is the first one. So I just want to discuss it a little bit with you. Now, the first thing when you see a derail in an archery shop, the first thing I look at and the first thing I ask is what poundage it is. 95% of all derails are going to be 70-pound bows. And you're going to say, why is that? Because the people can't pull them back. They are struggling, and they struggle, and they move their little hand here. So instead of that bow being straight in line with the string, when they pull it back, they're pulling the bow like that, and they pull the string straight off the cams. So it's always 70-pound bows. Now, is this bow a 70-pound bow? Absolutely. Now, when a bow leaves my shop, I always wind down the bow, and I've shot the bow before it leaves my shop. You'll see this bow is fully wound up. So I know they wound this bow up. I'm pretty sure they did, because if we shoot them all, and this bow was second hand. So when this bow derailed, the string snapped because there's so much tension on the string, basically it just tears off. Now the cam itself is solid. There's no problems on the top cam. Now generally in derail you will see, or a dry fire, and you've got to determine whether it's a dry fire or a derail, and I think this is a derail. I think the person drew it back with their fingers. It was done in an archery shop, and they said they've got video of it, and I said, good, send it through to me, and they wouldn't. So I was like, yeah, fair enough. I guarantee they would draw it back with their fingers. Always draw back a bow with a release aid. I have signs up in my shop, don't draw back bows. I'm more than happy to teach you how to shoot and to have the bow drawn back. Now I'm looking at the draw length. This is set on I, so it was set very short, and I would have had this set on C. Now the other thing that's happened, you'll see here, this cam, when it's derailed, this cam has actually flexed into the limb, and it's hit the limb, so it's caused the limb to split. Now all the rest of and that's very, very rare. On all the derails I find, it's generally you need a new string and a new set of cams. Now the cams, 50-50, sometimes you'll need them, sometimes you won't. All you look for is little pressure cracks in here, they'll be grey. And you look through here in sunlight and there's no crack. So this is good to go. So what this bow needs, it needs one limb to replace this. Now this limb could be shot like that. You could file that down. You can see the little crack here. It's just on the edge. It's just a little split on the edge. It's not a strength factor. If you get cracking on the inside of limbs here, that's a strength factor, and you don't want to shoot that. But on the edge, I'd be more than happy to shoot that limb. Now the other thing that concerns me with this bow is the placement of these washers. Now it's possible to shim a cam from left to right to affect the lean of the bow. So generally when you draw back a bow, you check to see if the cams are completely aligned, and you move the cam left or right to get the cam perfectly in alignment. Now from my memory, and my memory is not good, from my memory the big ones on that side meant to be, but I basically go in the store and I check. I go and grab a PSE Stinger, which is basically the same bow, and I check the alignment of these bows. So basically it's one limb, and hopefully I've got one of these limbs in the shop, a new string, and this bow's back together, and it will literally last forever. But with warranty, and this is second hand, so there is no warranty, but with warranty, if you're up front with dealers, I'm going to say they're generally okay, and some dealers are and some dealers aren't. I would have been okay with this, except the person goes, "You got to cover postage," and I was like, "No, I'm not going to cover postage, dude." He had the bow for 6 weeks, and like I said, it was broken in an archery shop, by an archery shop. So anyway, that's the way it is. It just needs a new string, cams are fine, and the limbs. So the thing of this story, before you pull back a bow, wind it down. This bow would wind down to 55 pounds, which is going to be too heavy for the average archer. 70 pounds is really for people who are really, really strong. And while everyone thinks they're strong, you really need to go to a gym and see some of the girls who lift weights, because they're just incredible. So the first thing is, the bows are always heavy, they're always on maximum poundage, and they're always drawn back with fingers when they derail them. So you will get people draw them back with release aids and derail, but very rare. The majority are fingers, 70 pounds, that or that. And that's, this type of thing accounts for, I'm going to say, it used to account for 90% of my warranty claims. But now I push this pretty hard with people, and it's probably down to 50% of all warranty claims I do. But this is regular. I see this in my shop. I would have seen it once a week before, and with eBay, very regular, because people haven't been taught to shoot. They're generally buying bows which are too heavy. They don't know what they're doing. Always first timers, and yeah. Okay, so since I did the first one with the blow up, we've rebuilt the bow. So I just want to take you through what we did to the bow and what we looked at and that sort of stuff with this bow. Now on this point, there was a person down in the club on the weekend, had a brand new, and it's going to be a prime with the twin track cams. Now he had a similar problem. The string wasn't lining up. When I say it wasn't lining up, it was actually touching the cam. So he couldn't physically draw the bow. So the first thing I want to address is basically looking at your bow. Now basically, if I put this, and I'm hoping this is all done correctly, I think it is. So I put an arrow along the side of the cam, and the arrow should basically track with the string. As you can see, it is here. Now we'll do the same down the bottom. Now, when you buy a bow brand new from the factory, the shops generally don't check this stuff, because it's all assumed it's done. So you put the arrow down the side, and you can see it just tracks nicely. So what we did is basically, you move the cam left or right to basically make this correct. Now if you remember when I first did this, it's 2 weeks since I did this first video, there wasn't a washer on this side here. Now the reason there wasn't a washer, these little washers are plastic. Now when this bow, I think it was derailed, and I think what happened, it was a 70-pound bow, the guy drew it back with his fingers and he twisted it like that, and the string came off here, causing it to snap off the little pivot there, which caused the string to snap, which did happen. And because this side's given way, all the pressure's on this side, which then, anyway, then the cam hits this limb. Pressure's off more on the weight's on here, so they'll push this up, pushes this limb down, causes the cam to hit. So I'll just run through that again. This side here has no pressure because he's derailed the bow. This side still here has pressure, so this side here has no pressure, so it moves up. This side here moves up, causing the limb to hit the cam. Now it also causes the little washer here to strip out. So yeah, right. Now the next thing I found, so the cams are all lined up. The next thing I found, which is really important that you want to check, is when you draw back this string here, this is the middle one, so this is your yoke cable, this is the middle thing. You want to make sure it tracks on the little module there. Now there's not a lot you can do. If this cam is straight, well, you can basically move the cam left or right so that it does track evenly on that, evenly on this string. So let's say it's moving left to right, you just move the cam left or right, and that you can get it to track straight. Now what I found with this bow is on all PSEs the cable guard should be at 1 o'clock, so that's about at that angle there. Now on this bow it had been moved out to there. Now, and this is one of the problems when you sell a bow. It's like, you know, you check all this stuff. When I say you check it all, like it's the way it is. Now when I saw this bow come back, this cable guard had actually been moved down to here. Now the reason the customer or the shop did this is to have fletch clearance here. Now you'll see, I'm going to try and put that in there. You can see when you put the arrow on, okay, you can see how much fletch clearance you get there. I'm going to move this arrow through and try and keep it in the same line. You can see it almost touches. Now if you're shooting blazer vanes, which are the most common, it might touch. And this is one of the major reasons why people will shoot a drop away arrow rest. You can actually move your vanes to that way. So you've got cable clearance. Now if you're shooting a flexible cable guard, its flex clearance is always a major issue. You don't want your vanes hitting your cables on the way through, because if they hit, they're going to cause it to flick out. Now they generally won't, because as you release the arrow, these cables are moving in, the pressure's increasing on the cable guard and hopefully moving away. But in this case, I think what they do is they move this there to create greater clearance. Now, yeah, you can do it a little bit, but by doing that, what you did was you moved this cable here way to that side there, because I'm going to create the problem. So they've moved this cable. I'll put down the arrow. So instead of it being there, let's try this again. This cable here. So by pulling it across, you're actually moving that across. So when it tracks on that cam, you're pulling it across. So basically, you're almost pulling it off the module. Is that what happened? I don't think so. I think he drew it back with his fingers, and I think he derailed the bow. But you're going to create more problems. You're going to create cam wear. When I say cam wear, serving wear on the limbs. You're creating more pressure. You're creating more torque. It is a problem. Cable clearance is always a problem. And, you know, how you solve it, whether you twist your vanes, so that's in 2 this side and 1 outwards, whether you shoot drop away rest, you've got to check to see if you're getting contact. But if you are going to move this, and you can move it, there's just a little screw there to move it. If you are going to move it, just be very careful of it and check it on a drill board to make sure it's pulling back dead straight. We have checked this bow on a drill board and it's all perfect. So in summary, with this bow, we made new strings and cables, put a new cable guard on, a little cable slide, green. We put new limbs on the bow. Now all up in labor time, it takes about 2 hours, almost 2 hours to make these strings. To rebuild the bow, probably, let's say another hour, probably a little bit short of that, 40 minutes. To put the new limbs on, balance it, because each PSE limb is a different poundage. To align the cam, just to sort of check. I mean, it wasn't too bad, but allow 40 minutes to rebuild the bow. And the bow's good, like it's all been shot now. Now, the person who actually rebuilt this bow works in my shop, obviously. And he actually, when I say rebuilt the bow, he actually shot the bow. I think we put new strings on the bow or something on this bow before we sent it out. Last time he goes, this bow's been shot since last time. Now, we sell a lot of bows. But my staff member basically knew the bow. And he had shot the bow in the shooting range before it went out, as we do with most bows. We shoot in the shooting range before they go out, especially secondhand. Anyway, that's it. So, derails, I think that was the purpose of this video. But anyway, cam alignment, limbs. With PSE also, each limb's a different poundage. So when you've got cam lean, you can either adjust it here or move the limbs, or you can actually move your limbs around. Now on the prime bow, it was a solo limb. You couldn't move your cams left or right, so you basically had a problem. So the customer was going to try moving them upside down, so put the bottom limb at the top limb and vice versa, to see if there was a problem with the limbs or the riser. It's not going to help him because he's got to send this stuff back anyway, but it'll help Prime identify the problem that he had. But with PSE, you get so much adjustability because, like I said, each limb is a different poundage. So you can just get the whole lot perfect. You just have so much variation. It's just easy. And you'll see here, this cable here has very little twist, and this one's got quite a bit of twist to get that completely level. So yeah, I hope that's sort of been informative. Anyway, I'm Stephen Ham from Archery Supplies. Enjoy your archery, and I'm going to say generally you won't have a problem with your bow. I've been shooting for 32 years. I had a second-hand bow break when I started, when I was 14. Limbs split, which was unfortunate. Since then, I've had no problems with bows. In my shop, I have very few problems with bows. Most of my problems are with bows that are sent out to people. Teaching them how to shoot. If you teach a person how to shoot, you have very little problems with the bow. And they're generally always 70-pound bows. They're bows fully wound up where people are going to struggle pulling the bow back. Very few problems with light poundage bows, and if the person's been taught to shoot correctly. So anyway, I'm Stephen Ham from Archery Supplies. And also, one thing that's really good with PSE is these timing marks. There you can see the timing marks, so you can see if the strings and cables are spot on straight out the box, which is great. So with other bows, it's really hard to test if there's no timing marks, because you're like, oh, is it right? Is it not right? PSE, piece of cake. Yeah, so that's a really good feature of all PSEs. They all have timing marks. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.